live at the bottom of an ocean. We're on the very floor of an ocean. And this ocean is way miles above us. This ocean is invisible. And it's filled with all sorts of invisible entities. Most don't care about any of us. Some really care. And some really want to do damage to us. So you have to live a disciplined, pristine, spiritually pristine life, because if you start opening yourself up, they will come in. And that is what mental illness is those demons getting in there. And we have, and what's going on today is that the demons have gotten into the people of power. The people of power are now using their power to create devices that allow the human mind to open up to these forces. In other words, the demon energy is increasing because of certain kinds of software, certain kinds of movies, certain kinds of music, certain kinds of news. It softens you up psychologically. As soon as that hole opens, they get in. And that's what you really want to avoid. So, I say you have to take care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. And physically means you're going to have to exercise every day. Mentally means you have something that is a challenge to you every day. And spiritually means that you have to calm down the body and rise up more. And generally, if you do that, the demons won't bother you, the Archons won't bother you, because they can sense you from a mile away, and they just go the other direction, because they don't want you identifying them. That's the one thing they don't want. And so, I've learned now to identify them. If I see one, I say to them, you've got something in you. You need to get it out of you. And generally, they never talk to me again. So, but I feel it's my duty to tell them that, to tell people that I believe have entities in them that they need to work now to get them out of them as soon as possible. Because once they start feeding on you, they just grow and grow and grow until you literally lose your mind.
Yeah, I think that's why it's such an important topic. More people need to know about this. They're far more pervasive than the average person thinks is even possible.
I knew this guy, and he got in a construction accident. He was working construction. A crane hit him on the side of the head, swinging crane. And he had his hat on, but it still pushed his brain to the other side, and he had a gigantic brain bruise. And he went to the hospital, and he was in there for like a week, and he felt really weird and out of place, and didn't know what was going on. And of course, they sent him home without, any painkillers or anything, because that's what they do nowadays. So he went home, and so when he got to his apartment, he was making himself a sandwich, and he realized there was somebody in the apartment with him. And he looked over and he saw this humanoid entity walking across the living room and wasn't looking at him or noticing him at all. And then he saw another humanoid entity walking around in the apartment, and he started staring at him, and they noticed him staring at him. And so they came in and started closing in on him and looking at him. And he got so freaked out by the experience that he acted like he couldn't see him. And they were in his apartment, and sometimes there were 8 or 9 of these entities in the apartment. And as his brain healed, they went away. And doctors said, "Oh, you're just hallucinating," and because of the accident and everything. But when he tells the story, man, you do not believe that he's talking about hallucination, because there is utter, absolute fear in his voice when he tells the story, right? And, and he always ends it with this, and they're probably still here.
Right. Well, if they're other dimensional, how would you know unless you have second sight? So
exactly. So, we demonic energy is cumulative, and that it builds on itself. And back in the old days, in like the 1500s and 1400s.
The Archons are at work.
I'm turning my phone off. Okay, so the old days, in the 1400s and 1500s, there would be periodic cleansings in Europe. And actually, they did it in India and Africa and South America too. There would be these periodic cleansings. We called them the witch trials, or the attacks of the witch. But what they would do is they would have so many mentally ill people in their village that the normal people would all get together and go, what are we going to do? Right? We have only a limited amount of food. These guys are usually eating food, but they're not really contributing. They're insane. They're walking around with half their clothes off in the winter, and they would purge them. That's just what they did. They had to. They would die and starve to death if they didn't purge the mentally ill from their population. And so they did. And they got a bad rap for it. But in a lot of ways, with the mentally ill people that are all around me now, I'm starting to wonder if that maybe was a good idea to have a kind of purge. Maybe you don't want to kill them like they did then, but do something. Make a nice place for them to go and make sure they got plenty of food and stuff, but away from the general population. We can't have it. And if we continue, there's a Native American concept called wetiko. And what wetiko is that the shaman of the tribe, he would always be looking around at everybody in the tribe, totally aware that wetiko could invade the tribe, and they had to be stopped the minute that it arrived. And what they thought wetiko was it started out as just gossip. Right? Just people gossiping. But then pretty soon the gossip turns into fights. Then the fights turns into violence. And then the violence turns into, war, inner war of the tribe. So they had to make sure that the Wetiko, or this kind of demon that would invade, could not get in. And so as soon as somebody would start gossiping, the shaman would say, you should not be talking about that person. They're not talking about you, so please shut up. They would try to end it as fast as they could, because they knew that once it got loose, you couldn't contain it. And that's what's going on in society right now. Social media is a gossip machine, and that gossip is the beginning of the evil.
Man, I tell you, I've had to deal with some of my own experiences with gossip, and it's very destructive.
It is.
And people don't want to get involved. People don't want to come and ask me what's going on. They just want to believe a certain individual, and it's very damaging. And you might be interested in your own research. The Church of Glad Tidings in Yuba City, it's about 45 minutes south of me here in Chico. They had a magical battle with Anton LaVey over 7 months back in '97.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And defeated him using the name of Christ, and then they developed this whole 12 tools. Yeah. And they teach deliverance twice a year at the church. You mentioned earlier about talking to the demon as it comes up. There's an exorcist there named Jess Parker who wrote a book, To Hell with Sarah, which I think you might be interested in. Yeah. Jess Parker likes to pump the demon for information, find out its name. Yeah. And then just like in magical traditions, once you get the name of the entity, you get the power over it. Yep. And then you find out what its assignment is, who its boss is, and they're usually connected to other higher ranking beings. Anyway,
have you seen the movie The Pope's Exorcist?
I have not.
I'm not going to spoil it. It's actually kind of, if you're into this subject, it's an interesting movie. Okay. It's the life story of Padre Pio. He was this guy fighting demons for the Catholic Church. And the opening scene is an amazing scene. It starts out with, I can't remember, Russell Crowe plays him. Russell Crowe is in a priest outfit, 1940s Italy, is walking down an old Italian village with an altar boy who's dragging a pig along with him. And they come up to the house, they knock on the door, and the woman comes and goes, oh, he's in bed and he's acting terrible. Father, you got to save him. So he goes into his bedroom, and there's this boy who's possessed by a demon, right? And he's acting all demonic, and Padre Pio goes, I don't believe that you're a demon. I think you're just this boy faking it. And the demon freaks out. And he goes, no, you're just faking it. No, you're not a real demon. And the demon continuously freaking out, getting more and more freaked out. And then he says, if you were a demon, though, you could probably leap into this pig. And the demon goes, what? And all of a sudden the pig starts squealing, right? And he pulls out a gun and he shoots the pig.
Yeah, well,
it's one of the best openings I've ever seen, to be honest.
That reminds me of the movie Fallen with Denzel Washington.
Oh, that was a great one, yeah.
And then again, referencing back to the Church of Glad Tidings, the demons, when they come up, they get very egotistical and braggadocious.
Yeah, they do.
So you can play to that, and that's what that scene you just described seems to confirm some of the things that I've learned at the church. So
yeah, I have someone I know who I believe got possessed here recently. And it was a really big surprise to me. But he was doing all the kinds of things that you would do to open yourself up to what was the demon. So kind of have to take your own responsibility for it. But I did, notice that even the his facial structure kind of altered and things, and it was just disconcerting, to be honest with you. One time I was really in a tense situation with somebody at work where I was working at a big corporation, and they'd done something completely egregious that I would have to pay the price for. Right, this person did, and I had to confront them because it was so egregious. So I waited till everyone was gone and wanted to make a big scene out of it, and I tried to do everything diplomatically. And I went up to this person and I said, listen, what you did is completely wrong, and you cost, my department a whole bunch of money, and I have to go to the boss and explain all this, and I just want you to know I'm really not happy here. And for a brief split, like maybe 100th of a second, the person's face completely changed into a demon. And I mean, I can't even describe it. And then it changed back, like in a flash of a second. And I was like, the person saw that I'd seen it. And I was, because I stepped back, I was like, I gasped and stepped backwards, and actually was kind of a little bit afraid of what I'd seen. And, and telling myself, did I really see that? Did I really see that? Right. And I did. And, and so, every once in a while they leak through, is what I'm saying, and you can see them.
Yeah.
And it's not a pleasant sight.
It certainly is not. Yeah, I have some of my own experiences. I can share some of those with you if you want.
But I'll tell you one more thing about it, because this is an interesting subject. About 6 weeks before Alex Jones was kicked off the air and I'll push away from everything, right? I was watching him one night, and he had a guest on. I have no idea who this person was now. It was so long ago now. And he was telling Alex how you fight demons, and went on for like a good hour and a half. And it was really, really interesting. And about halfway through the show, because I thought it was like one of the most incendiary shows I'd ever seen, I thought to myself, if there are demons and he's on this show telling us how to successfully fight demons, then the demons are going to end this show. That's what I thought. The demons are going to end this show.
I mean, why would they allow that PR to get out there?
And within 2 weeks, he was gone off the air completely. They did it all on the same day, if you remember. Apple took him off Apple, YouTube took him off YouTube, Twitter, everybody removed him all at the same time, all on the same day. Clearly, a conducted operation of some kind.
Well, and then he got sued with a big.
Then he got sued for millions and millions.
That's right.
Outrageous lawsuits.
I know you've had your own dealings with that. You talk about it if you want to, whatever you feel comfortable with. I know from my own experience, when I've gotten into the stickiness of the dark side, and it's hard to get rid of it, I've been myself involved in some legal cases, and I'm pretty convinced that the legal system is one way that the dark forces come after somebody. Because it can really entangle you and take up your time and emotional energy and money.
Oh yeah, it's been hell on earth. I would, I know now why people don't sue people, because I don't even know. The thing with these lawsuits that are going on is I can't figure out the upside. I mean, I can't figure out why you would sue somebody and then go on the stand and say that your story isn't true. I just don't understand that. I'm like, and it's your fault. So it's like in tennis, it's an unforced error, right? You know what I mean? I mean, why would you make an unforced error? I mean, I don't know.
So a theory I have on that, and is that back to the Book of Enoch, as Metatron was bringing Enoch up through the heavens, he passes the second heaven, where he hears the lamentation of the imprisoned fallen angels, right? So he goes over there to kind of find out what's going on. The story that I got is that not all the fallen angels felt like they were guilty, that they were just following orders, kind of thing, kind of like the Nuremberg trials. And so Enoch gives them a little bit of advice, saying, "Hey, look, God's going to judge you no matter what. But what I would do if I was you is I would sing the praises of God from now till Judgment Day, and maybe God will change His mind at Judgment Day." So when I hear stories like what you just described, it's like those. Let's just, for example, hypothesize that this individual that we're talking about has archons or demons inside them. Mm-hmm. They're actually crying out for help when they do that, because they know that they got caught up on the wrong side, and they want to repent. They want to do right by humanity. They literally sing the praises of God by helping humanity. That's a good analysis.
That's really a good analysis. I actually, because I'm very aware of a lot more things than you are, that is actually a very close analysis to what is going on. And the cry for help is almost constant, actually. If you look at it from your point of view, reading anything that's being written by him, it's like one long cry for help, if you read it between the lines.
I've been following it on your Facebook page, and it's just so let's talk about the broader topic now in the UFO community. This is just one aspect of either disinformation or misinformation is this a sign of the greater UFO community? Is there a lot of disinformation, misinformation in the UFO community? Is it by design, or is it just is it demonized the community? Is it controlled chaos to try to distract people, or all the above? What is it?
Well, I think that what it is that the UFO community, how do I say this? The rise of secret technology parallels the sightings of UFOs. UFOs were seen before the rise of secret military technology. I'm not saying that, but the increase in sightings started in the 50s, right when they were developing all of their Project Paperclip secret technologies that they were using. So a lot of people would see them flying by, and then the cover story was that they were aliens, and then no one would question anything. So then out of that came the Hollywood movies about aliens, and kind of ensconced the idea inside of us that there were all these alien races out there. But what secret societies from the past and what they were trying to do is they were trying to get in contact with other dimensional forces and intelligences, and that they were actively trying to do this. They still are, and they would break through. They would have a breakthrough, and they would meet an intelligence from another dimension, and which is really foolish, I believe. And that intelligence would then instruct them to do things. We know the Nine, Andrea Puharich, and the guy that owned Bell Helicopter, all these bigwigs from the 1950s and 60s, these intellectuals, got together in, I think it was in Connecticut, and they contacted a group called the Nine, and the Nine were these entities, and the Nine gave them technologies and things, and languages, and this very complex series of information was given to these very wealthy people by the group they called the Nine, and this goes all over the place. So the intelligence agencies also are interested in this thing, contacting other dimensions, intelligence from other dimensions. So the intelligence agencies infiltrated all of the occult groups, the schools like Rudolf Steiner or the Maharishi, or in all of them. They infiltrated all of them. That's one of their main things that they do, is infiltrate all these groups and get more and more intelligence, because they're intelligence gathering agencies. So they also want to know about other dimension intelligence too. So then we now have, we have the intelligence agencies and we have the occult groups, and they're now intermeshed into one, and they are now using these other dimensional intelligences to rearrange the way that the human race thinks and lives. And I believe that the most high intelligence that they have contacted hates the human race, and hates love, most of all. Love a man and a woman, love for a mother for their child or a father for their child. They absolutely hate it. They hate happiness. They hate anything that makes people happy. It must be destroyed. There's a book, Catcher in the Rye. The Catcher in the Rye is a very evil book, and in the book he talks about his club that he's a part of. It's clearly Freemasonry, and he says in the book, you live in a nice place? Well, guess what? We're coming to your nice place and we're going to destroy it, because that's what we do. We go from nice place to nice place and we destroy everything that's nice, because we don't like anything that's nice. I mean, it's clear as a bell what that means, and that helps explain why there's these forces which use the law, by the way, to like remove Christmas trees from airports. And Christmas tree hasn't got anything to do with religion. It's just a tree with lights on it, signifying that it's dark as hell out right now, and it's a kind of a symbol of light. And so, but they have to outlaw everything. Everything has to be outlawed. You can't have any fun. You can't even have a garden in Colorado, where I live. It's actually illegal to have a garden. So it's a curious thing, and what we're going to have to do is find a way to succeed in rebelling somehow without violence.
Again, let's talk about Big J. Let's talk about Jesus for a second. So Jesus comes down and sets up his shop right at the mouth of the cave of Mount Hermon, starts his ministry. Right, literally, like, if you've got an enemy, the thing you do to intimidate him is you go right to the front door, knock on the front door, and call him out. Yep. That's like what Jesus was doing, right? So while clearly people like yourself and myself like to hair split and study all the different ranks or categories of these different beings and the history behind them, I find it totally fascinating. With the Jesus thing, you just treat them all as demons, and then you got the 12 tools, the name of Jesus being the biggest one. I don't know if you've ever seen a Deliverance, but I've seen some crazy things out of Deliverance. Stuff coming up. I've seen 4 young men have to hold down an old lady who was manifesting and was giving the 4 young men trouble, right? Whereas normally she'd be a frail little thing, right? I mean, I've seen a guy launch off the front row and start riding around like a snake, hissing. I've seen people throw up. It's crazy stuff. But it seems to me, whether you believe in Jesus or not, I would just recommend try it. If you've got trouble like this, it's free, and it seems to simplify a lot of stuff. If you don't have the time to study to figure out what exactly it is that's coming at you, just treat it as a demon. Start casting it out in the name of Jesus. Love, like you're saying. Many people think God is love. So I don't know if you tried that yourself. I don't know.
I have not. However, I was raised a Catholic, and then I eschewed the religion when I was in my 20s because I thought I knew everything. Of course, everybody knows everything when they're in their 20s. And then about 5 years ago, I studied alchemy and all these esoteric art forms from ancient art forms, spiritual treatises and things that were all very expensive for me to get. It cost me a lot of money, and ancient books. And I was completely fascinated with the whole idea that, there's this underlying spiritual thing going on that nobody wants to talk about. And then I decided, after 30 years, I guess, since the last time I'd read it, I decided to read just the New Testament, not the Old Testament. I know all about the Old Testament and all that. I'm not really interested in the Old Testament, but I decided to read the New Testament, with 30 years of this intense scholarship, and I was blown away. I mean, I was completely blown away. I was blown away because it was 100% alchemy, the whole thing. Jesus was the crystal. Mary was the water. The changing of the water to wine. The idea that banks, that temples were being used as banks, and how offensive that really was, and how incredible that means today. That the temple, he got outraged. It caused his death, in fact. He got outraged because they were using the holy temple for the worship of God as a money exchange place. What was he trying to tell us today? You know what I mean? And I mean, that to me, and he was willing to die to make that point, right? And then the riding the donkey on Palm Sunday, riding the donkey. This is mockery. Riding the donkey is mockery. He's mocking. This is, in the old days, this was called mockery. What you would do, if you wanted to mock the people in authority, you would ride a donkey instead of a horse. And people don't realize that now, but in The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo, that's what the fool was riding, was a donkey, right? And when they were making fun of the church, right? He was the Pope. He had a Pope hat on. He was riding a donkey, right? And because once a year, the fool the church had a festival where everybody got to make fun of the church. Around April Fool's Day. So everyone would make fun of the church for a whole week, and it was a big festival. And I think it's a really good idea. So anyway, then the most important part is, of course, the end, because in alchemy, one of the deepest secrets is that you're put into a room, a completely dark black room, and you stay in that black room for 3 days. At the end of the 3rd day, your friends, whoever's helping you, they come in and they put a blindfold over you. They put you in a light, tight coffin. They take you outside to the top of a nearby hill, and before the sun rises, and then they take you out of the coffin. And right when the very tip of the sun hits the horizon, they pull off your blindfold, and you stare into the sun as it rises for about 5 minutes, and then they put you back in the coffin, put you back in the room where you stay for 40 days. Okay. Now, what's going on here? What's going on is that you're going into the room for 3 days, and you're pumping up your melatonin in your pineal gland, which is only created in darkness. And then when you go out and you stare into the sun, that huge amount of melatonin is instantly turned into serotonin. Serotonin is 1 atom away from dimethyltryptamine. So you're taking endogenous form of dimethyltryptamine when you're looking at that sun. You're being reborn, you're being rebirthed. Then you're taken down into the room for 40 days, where the legends say that you completely lose. If you're 60, you come out at 30. If you're 50, you come out at 20. Right? You're completely. This is a deep legend in alchemy. When I'm reading the New Testament, and I'm seeing that he's killed on a cross, that's super symbolic in alchemy, and then I'm realizing that alchemy must have come from this testament, the New Testament, and there's really no record of it before, not really, and so it's as if they've created some kind of science around the resurrection, is what I'm saying. That it's still a mysterious science, and that here's the other thing. the Catholic Church right now is going through incredible vexations because over the last 15, 20 years, their Catholic priests have gone out around the world and discovered that there's other people that have done exactly what Jesus did in Tibet and in India, where they literally turned to light and there's nothing there. Gone. Completely gone. And they've reported this back. One guy missed the thing by one day, and they reported it back to whatever the guy is in Rome. I can't remember his name. And he actually came out and said something like, we've got to rethink everything because we may have missed the boat on this whole thing. And then clearly he was told to shut up and not say anymore. That was about 8 years ago. And he just kind of shut up and the whole thing's kind of drifted underground. But I think actually the Catholic Church may be falling apart. It may not exist in like 10 years.
Jay, you mentioned alchemy towards the end of segment 1. Can you give us a brief description for our viewers of what alchemy is? And then let's compare and contrast alchemy with magic, if you can do that.
Well, alchemy, that's a hard one. So, alchemy is the attempt to understand the unseen world and to navigate it and to be able to come back with real knowledge. And so alchemists use a whole variety of methods to cause them to go into altered states for this exact purpose. And it could be anything from ecstatic dancing to, certain kinds of chemicals to anything. There's a whole bunch of different ways. And the whole point is that you have to understand the multi-dimensional universe around us and to navigate it and to come back with real vital information is also to understand how to navigate the afterlife. So in the afterlife, a lot of very confusing things begin happening. So when you die, you have a field, a huge field around you of invisible etheric plasma, you call whatever you want, around you. And the more happy and good you are and kind you are, the bigger and more fulfilled this invisible field is. It's like a donut. And it comes down to the top of your head, down your spine, out the bottom of your spine, and all the way around again. And when you die, that field begins collapsing. And as it gets close to your skin, when you're dying, you'll begin getting cold because that field actually warms you. It's electrical in nature. And as that field collapses down into you, it wraps around your spine finally. It's just around your spine, and it shoots out the top of your head. And that's the tunnel that everybody sees when they die. And it shoots back up into the layers of plasma around the earth, what Swedenborg would call 7 heavens. There's 7 of these layers of etheric energy around the earth, and depending on what you did in your life, you go to one of these layers where you learn a whole bunch of things that you didn't know that you can't learn here. You take what you learned here and go there and take that, and then if you're far enough along, then you get to get closer back to source, and that's the whole goal, is to get closer back to source and not come back here anymore. And so the alchemist is trying to achieve. He's trying to get to the very outer 7th level when he dies or she dies. And that's what all people should be trying to achieve, because out there is the closest to escaping the whole entire system and moving a higher grade up the hierarchy towards source. And so the alchemist that's what he does, and he uses various devices. Once you understand that everything around you is electrical, you can't see it, but it's electrical in nature. That's why when the psychologist was talking to the demon, when the demon left, there was a huge electrical pop in the room, because the demon his energy is mostly plasma or low electrical charge. And that's why when ghosts are in the room, everybody's hair stands up, because the electrical charge is increased. And so these demonic forms, but also the angelic forms, all those forms are actually plasma bodies, and you can't normally see them. Sometimes you can. If they want you to see them, they'll show themselves to you. But most of the time that they're invisible, except for, like saints and saints and somebody can see them, and I can't remember the slogan, but so alchemists are hyper aware of this invisible world, and they go up into these different heavens at night when they sleep. And they go up into these heavens and they talk to astral creatures and angelic beings and things. And they have to be very discerning, because there's also the demonic energies which seem to be angelic but aren't. So the alchemist learns tricks to find out the sincerity of all of the different beings that they meet in the etheric realm. And so that's what alchemy is. It's been around for a long, long time, and here's the other thing. This is why the story of Jesus is so one of the reasons it's so compelling is one of the things that they teach you when you get deep into alchemy is that you don't have to worry about bad people doing this. They can't do it. That's one of the things they tell you. You say, what do you mean? They say, well, if you're not a compassionate, good, kind person, you're not going to be able to do any of this alchemical work. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So you have to really work hard to make sure that you stay on the straight and narrow then. And yeah, that's what you have to do. You can't lie, you can't cheat on your wife, you just can't do any of it, right? No matter how deep the temptation is, you can't give into it. You have to be moderate in everything you do. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. Then when I was reading the New Testament, and I got to the part where, they're torturing essentially Jesus, and he's forgiving them essentially. I thought, my God, that would be the ultimate test of your spiritual authority, wouldn't it? To have someone torture you and hurt you as bad as they hurt that guy, and to forgive them all the way to the end of your life. That is alchemy. That's alchemy right there. That's to be able to forgive your enemies all the way to the end. And by the way, I do forgive my enemies, even the ones that are suing me. I love them and I forgive them. And I do. And I know they're wrong, and I know that they are crying out for help, and I hope they get help.
I can say the same thing. I forgive my enemies that are gossiping about me. And it's a very tricky thing to do because it feels so good to try to defend yourself or to fight back. From an earthly perspective, it feels good to do that. And so to forego that is to forego the flesh, as they say, and forgiveness is love. I would have form of love.
I was a martial artist, and so back 20 years ago, I would have cracked him right between the eyes.
Sure.
And I was vicious. I really was. I was known for being somebody who was fast and vicious. So, but I've learned my ways. I don't hurt people anymore. And so it goes. But alchemy is a way of life because you have to wake up every day, knowing what you're doing. And alchemy is making something out of nothing. That's what it is. And it's very creative. That's why it's called an art. It's why it's an art and not a science. And so the alchemist knows that he can make his own reality, or she can make her own reality, and they practice it all the time. It's, okay, well, let's do something to see if this is provable. That's the great thing about being able to create your own reality is that it's scientifically testable. And so I had a very wealthy man who I was in my late 20s and he was in his 70s, and he was an esoteric person, an alchemist, had literally hundreds of millions of dollars. And for some reason he took me under his wing and let me read all of his books, and for about 2 years we hung out together, go see movies and things, and always testing me. And one day we were sitting in his limousine after seeing a movie, and he goes, you know the difference between me and you? And I go, well, there's a lot of differences, but what? He goes, you're living somebody else's dream, and I'm living my own dream. Okay, I am living a lucid dream. I am dreaming right now, but it's a lucid dream, and I'm in control of my dream. You're in the dream too, but you're not controlling anything. He said, so go ahead, start controlling your reality. He said, don't want to be rich. So that is not what you want to be. Do not make a reality where you're going to get rich. You may get rich, that may come, but make a reality based on something that makes you happy, right? Maybe you want a girlfriend, or maybe you want your own business, or maybe you want a new bicycle, or whatever, but manifest something real. Don't say, I want to be rich, because you can be a Colombian drug lord and they're rich, but they're miserable. So make sure you do that. So I went home, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I've been trying to be a filmmaker for like 15 years now. I was like 26 when this happened, and I pretty much was failing, and thinking maybe I should go into real estate, right? And so I just every day I woke up and I manifested that I'm a great filmmaker, and I worked on projects, and I created projects, and within 6 months I got a job in production. I moved up the ranks to the top of the thing. Pretty soon I was, by the end I was running my own network, literally a streaming network, and I was running it, the programming in it, and so you do create your own reality, but you got to be careful about what you create, because you can live your dream, but you have to be really careful and not, like if you want to be a great rock star, okay, that's good, but you got to know that great rock stars are heavily manipulated by the record companies. They're given all sorts of drugs and terrible things and all that. So you manifest something that is not vindictive or could hurt you in any way, and you'll be fine. So A nice house is a good thing to manifest. A family is a great thing to manifest. There's lots of things to manifest, but just be careful because we are magical beings, and we have been gifted this incredible ability to take reality and mold it and change it, and to the point where you'll start believing your own BS if you're not careful either. So what you have to also do, and all alchemists do this, is you must every, like, at least once a week, give yourself a huge dose of cognitive dissonance. Find something that you totally disagree with and read it. Read it. Just read it. Read the whole thing. Get it all the way through, even if it's the most painful thing you've ever done. I guarantee when you're done, you will know more about this reality than when you started. Because if you read things that you disagree with, you begin to understand them. And when you understand them, the world becomes easier to understand. And so you got to jump out of your bubble. Everybody's got a bubble. Make sure you do not have a bubble. Make sure you are always popping that bubble and getting outside that bubble and taking a look around at the landscape, because otherwise you're just going to get consumed by the dark side.
Right. Well, I'm headed straight to study the flat Earth then, right after we're done here. So you just said we're magical beings. So I was waiting for a good pause. A lot of the way that you describe alchemy to me is a way that you can describe magic. Are those two terms synonymous with each other, interchangeable, or is there a difference between magic and alchemy?
Well, there is a difference. Magic is the attempted manipulation of the material world, and alchemy is the attempt to understand the material world and the etheric and spiritual world. So magic uses the power of the etheric world to control the material world. That's its goal. Alchemy is an examination of the material world and how it works, and the etheric world and how it works, and how the two work together. And if once you've reached that understanding, you can control it, but not in a manipulative way. You're not here to manipulate. That's why alchemists don't practice magic. I do not practice magic. I do not. I'm not interested in manipulating people or anything like that. I'm only interested in my own life and my own spiritual quest. And so magic is real, and everybody's using it. And I know real estate agents who do magic rituals, and a huge amount of people moving towards Satanism right now for this exact reason, because Satanism teaches you how to manipulate people in reality for your own material benefit, and that's not alchemy. Alchemy, you couldn't do it. You can't have bad intentions. If you have intentions of trying to get rich, that's why they kind of invented the whole idea in alchemy that you could sit in your basement and do experiments and turn lead into gold. They wanted the people who were greedy to go waste their life doing that. And we don't want you in our group, right? We want you to go off and think that you can change lead into gold. You can change lead into gold. I'm not saying that, but the average Joe is never going to figure out how. But there are all sorts of experiments in physics going on right now where they're transmuting metals. They're transmuting lead into gold, silver into gold, gold into silver. It's happening right now. They can do it. I have a friend who's a very wealthy guy, and he told me that they have a way. He said that the entire Earth, outside the oceans, is covered with gold. He said it's everywhere. He said you can go to any spot, dig up some dirt, and take it to this transformation process that he has, and you will extract a little tiny bit of gold out of every bit of soil on Earth. So we must have gone through some kind of gigantic I don't know what, gold something. And so we're a planet imbued with gold, and we know that places where the gold mines are also places where there's UFOs. I live in a place where they mined over 8 million tons of gold, I think, in the 1880 to 1920. And this place is just spooked by UFOs all the time. I don't believe UFOs are aliens. I believe UFOs are these plasma beings that I'm talking about, these invisible plasma beings that make themselves seen. If a UFO is an alien being that doesn't want to be seen, why does it have lights on? I mean, right? And I'm not saying there isn't UFOs and aliens, but I'm just saying that if you YouTube UFO or write UFOs, you put UFOs in and hit YouTube and start watching the videos, you'll see most of them are not hard, sharp craft with windows flying around. Most of them, they're amorphous lights that are floating around.
Orbs.
Yeah, they're orbs is what they are. And that's what the orbs are. The orbs are places where there's this high electrical tension from rock or granite being pressed together, like at Mount Shasta, and then these orbs appear, right? And so you're looking for any kind of, they also appear around volcanoes, because volcanoes have this huge compressed rock that was once liquid, now it's all dried, and it's pressing in on each other, causing all sorts of electrical discharges. That's why you always see lightning strikes around volcanoes that are going off, right? And you see UFOs around volcanoes going off. And so I believe that we are interacting with this, what we would call the other, which is this other dimension that's just outside this dimension, and it's where we get creativity, it's where we get our thoughts, it's where we get all the stuff that we manifest into 3D, and so this etheric force is seriously turned on by the ability to become a human and have children and have sex and good food and all the things that make life so much fun, right? The etheric being comes here for that reason, and there's a line of beings trying to become a human, probably going 50 light years away, the end of the line, because everybody wants to come here and have this experience. Unfortunately, a lot of bad entities also want to come here and have an experience, and so we have to deal with that. And so we created laws and religions and spiritual confines to help prevent us from getting infected by those bad people. And now those barriers are disappearing. And I'm really glad I don't live in a big city right now, because I imagine demonic energy is quite loose there now. I hear it is. I see the videos, so I know it is. But yeah, I would say Chico's a nice place to be. That's a nice, safe place to be. So
hopefully, it's getting more city-like.
Yeah.
When I first got here in the mid '80s to go to college at Chico State, everyone wore Birkenstocks and rode around on cruiser bikes. And there's maybe 6 stoplights in the whole town. Now there's probably 30 stoplights. Nobody rides bikes very much.
I lived there in the summer of '78.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I ran the projector for the theater at night. And in the daytime, I worked with a guy who was making films. And so the deal was I would work with him during the day making his movies, and then I could earn money at night running the projector at the theater. So
okay.
I was
at the El Rey Theater?
Yeah.
Okay, it's still there. It's a concert venue now.
Oh, really?
It's still there.
Nice theater. Yeah, it was a nice theater. So yeah, Chico, what a weird place. Yeah, they burn the rice fields still every year.
They do. Yep. Got to watch out for that in the fall, late summer, fall.
Yep.
The air quality gets a little down.
Yep.
It was just 110 here yesterday. It's only about 103 today.
Yeah,
so we're got a little bit of a break.
I'm at 8,000 feet. It's 90 degrees. It's just murder.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Fascinating discussion about alchemy. Another subject that you'd like to talk about, you mentioned gold around the earth. That reminds me of Zechariah Sitchin and when the Anunnaki came here, Anunnaki being another maybe metaphor for the Archons.
Yep.
There's a man named Neil Freer. Have you heard of Neil Freer?
Oh, yeah. Neil Freer.
Okay, so he wrote 2 what I thought were fabulous books, Breaking the God Spell and God Games,
yep.
where he's basically making the case that the energy or the ethos, I guess you would say, from these gods that rule different sections of the earth, different regions, the personalities of those gods, those Anunnakis, what we would call gods now,
yep.
those Anunnakis permeate those cultures. So
yep.
If Yahweh was an angry god or Jehovah, that seems to kind of permeated the Israeli culture growing up,
yep.
as one example. So it's almost as if, because this spell, he calls it Breaking the God Spell, the spell is still over Earth. It's like one way to describe humanity is that we're one big case of the Stockholm Syndrome, where we were like married to this victim mentality where we're slaves and we can't free ourselves from this. Would you consider that to be an accurate description?
Yep, definitely. Yep. And that's why I tell everybody to like read stuff and watch stuff that you totally disagree with, so you can break free of that mental conditioning. You're not doing it because you're trying to convert yourself to a new way of thinking. You're trying to break the mental conditioning that you have inherited through all sorts of nefarious things that had gone on before we got here. Human beings we can't have evolved on this planet. It's impossible. We can't eat food that isn't cooked. We can't have a place. We have to live with a roof over our head. Even at the equator, where it's sunny all the time, it still rains sometimes for 30, 40 straight days. You will die of exposure if you're out in the rain. You need a roof over your head. We get sunburned, like I'm sunburned right now because it's so hot here. Why would we get sunburned? If we've been here for millions of years, our skin is attuned to this place hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Right.
At every single turn, you can see that we don't belong here at all, actually. It's little things like our disdain for vegetables. Why would we have a disdain for vegetables? I mean, it's just weird. If we grew up here, why wouldn't we like cauliflower and broccoli? But we don't. And and the whole thing, and we don't stop to think about it, that we are not evolved to live on this planet. So we must be the result of some kind of genetic change. And the Bible at the very beginning says that they came and they made us. The Nephilim or whatever they are. Not the Nephilim. The
Anunnaki.
The elves. Elohim.
Oh, the Elohim, sure.
Yeah, the Elohim. And there were many. There wasn't just one. And so it's clearly obvious that we were GMO. We're GMO somehow. And I believe that we have a governor placed on our consciousness to prevent us to keep us as slaves. So we can never use a full body or full embodiment of our consciousness. It's always trapped and limited. And, alchemy, that's one way, what it does is trying to take the shackles off your consciousness and to make you see the world, the larger world in a bigger way. And so right now the vibration, the electromagnetic field is collapsing. And so the vibration of the planet is being altered. The Schumann resonance is off the chart a week ago, and so the resonant frequencies are changing, and everybody is starting to now see, because the barriers have come down. They're starting to see reality for what it is, and they don't like it. They don't like what they're discovering. And so I felt in the collective unconscious, like about 3 months ago, I felt like this feeling that was like, you know what? I've had it. I just had it. I've had it with the nonsense, and I'm going to stop the nonsense. And almost immediately, the Bud Light thing came on, and the Target thing came on, and all of a sudden I was like, well, what's going on here? And I took a drive through Arizona, New Mexico, California, Utah, and Colorado. Really, a couple nice drives through there. And I do it every year in the spring when the water's going. And every little town last year had rainbow flags everywhere.
Right.
This year, none. No rainbow flags anywhere that I went. And I was like, that's weird. What's going on here? And I can't explain it. Except, maybe, I think that common sense people are looking out at the world that's being made and are saying, no more. We've had enough. And I think it's going to get worse and worse. I think the backlash is going to be extremely dramatic.
Yeah, that would be right. Because while I'm all for people to make their own choices in terms of their lifestyle, the percentage of what people actually practice in that lifestyle is being blown out of proportion in the media to make it seem like it's half the population. And I just think that, it's projecting onto the children. And I think that's while adults might be able to handle that, it's affecting the children in a negative way. And I think they're trying to, let's just say the Archons for argument's sake, are trying to produce a generation of kids that are just malleable and are just going to go with the flow, not critical think. And that's a real danger. So we really have to put a stop to that. Okay, so go ahead.
Go ahead. You got a question?
Last subject. You talked about Fulcanelli and the double apocalypse. What is the double apocalypse? Have you figured that out? And what is the safe refuge country?
Yeah, so the double apocalypse, the double catastrophe, is that every 12,000 years, almost like clockwork, the center of the galaxy lets out a burst of energy, gamma rays, synchrotron radiation, and also etheric energy. All the etheric energy that coming around comes from the center of the galaxy. And this moves out across, and you'll be able to tell when it's coming at us because nearby stars will be lit up, and they're lighting up. And when it hits us, this wave, it lights up the sun. Because it's pushing so much dust in the forefront of the wave that the dust gathers around the sun, falls down on the surface of the sun. There's no surface, but falls down into the electrical energy of the sun, causing it to confine itself in kind of a tomb of dust, and then kaboom, it blows it off, and we have a gigantic solar conflagration, which also happened 12,000 years ago. So we get hit by the galactic wave, and then a few weeks, days, months later, we get hit by the solar explosion, which hits half the Earth. So one time you die by fire, one time you die by water, because it's the Earth and pushes all the water around to the back of the Earth, causing this side to flood. So this side gets hit by forest fires and all sorts of terrible things, lightning strikes and all these terrible things, and this side gets hit by the flood that gets pushed around. So it happens every 12,000 years, just like clockwork. It is a disaster, and Fulcanelli told us about it in his book Mystery of the Cathedrals, in a chapter at the end about the Cross of Henday, which is a monument near a church in the south of France, which has inscriptions which me and Vincent Bridges deciphered in our 2 books, and which tells this exact story that I just told you. Now, this was all confirmed by physicist Dr. Paul Laviolette, who wrote a book, Earth Under Fire, which I made a film of his book. And in his book, which was written at almost at the same exact time that we were writing our book, he comes out and says that he did work on the ice core samples from Greenland showing a high level of radiation and then a solar conflagration. So he has absolute evidence going back to 12,000 years that these 2 events happened right like this in the ice core. Just a few days, weeks apart, right? So, I mean, that's it. And it's coming. It's coming at us right now.
It brings to mind Jose Arguelles' work, talking about the mind factor, Papillon technology, talking about the Hunab coup.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
Okay. Yeah. Time in the Technosphere, another great book.
Great book.
But he talked about in Mind Factor, he talked about the Hunapku, which is like a beam that's shooting from the galactic core.
That's right.
And it's consciousness altering. He didn't talk about how it would devastate the Earth, but that it would alter consciousness and it would affect the sun as well.
Well, the sun is now white. It used to be yellow, but it's now white. And that should give you pause for consideration, because in the last 20 years it has changed color. And that would tell me that the leading edge of the galactic wave has been coming in, maybe even all the way since 1859 during the event where all the telegraph wires got fried. So we may be, and Fultonelli clearly says that our consciousness is going to be altered as this wave comes in. We're going to be transmuted, he says. And that is what the Mayans were saying, which Jose Arguelles is talking about. That's what the Mayans who were mapping all of this through their calendar.
Right.
And so the Mayans know all about this. And what were the Aztec, the neighbors to the Mayans, doing? They were sacrificing people to keep the sun from being angry. Right? That was the whole point of the sacrifices, was to quiescent the sun, because it had gotten angry before. And we never want that to happen again.
Yeah, well, if you can control it, I mean, I don't think that's the best way to control it, of course, but, I have been to Chichen Itza, though that was Mayan, maybe it was something else before the Mayans, but, I saw the altar at the top of the pyramid there with the bloodstains in it, and that was a real thing. I mean, and supposedly the victims, we call them victims, but it was an honor to be chosen to be sacrificed in that way. Just a whole different way to look at life, right?
Yeah, well, again, the Velikovsky talks about how the catastrophe has turned us into we have mental issues because of the last catastrophe. And I think that a lot of that is what is going on with the Aztecs and the Mayans, is the fear of another catastrophe, which is overwhelming our very being, right? To the point where this is really what Freemasonry is. Freemasonry is the handing down of the knowledge of the catastrophe from father to son, so that they always have the knowledge of it and where to go. The place of refuge is in the Andes Mountains, the cave system in the Andes Mountains that are 12,000 feet. Fultonelli is a term. It means Vulcan, which means volcano, and Canelli, which means tunnel or canal. And so his name means tunnel in the volcano. And all the volcanoes have these tunnels in them. And
Sure.
It's a really good place to go when the catastrophe comes, because you're high up above the waves, so you don't have to worry about the water, and you're inside a mountain, so you don't have to worry about the solar conflagration.
Very interesting. I still keep wanting to read that book by Brother Philip, something about the Andes. I forget what that is. It's a classic book. I'll bet you know what the title is.
I do. I'm trying to think. What was I know I read that book. Yeah. There's all sorts of alchemical labs and groups in the Andes. That's where all the alchemists went to the Andes at the end of in between World War I and II. They all went to the Andes. That's where they all live now, because it's a place of refuge.
Okay, wonderful. I really appreciate your time. You've been very generous. Thank you so much. Can you give us the title of your two books for our listeners?
First book is A Monument to the End of Time, Alchemy, Fultonelli, and the Great Cross. And the second one is Mysteries of the Great Cross of Henday, Alchemy at the End of Time. And the
website,
you'll find the second one on Amazon. The first one's, I think, $800 on Amazon, but the second one's only $24 or something.
Right. Nice. That's $800. That just sounds, doesn't that make you feel good?
It does. It's a very valuable book, and a very good book too, by the way.
Very impressive. Okay, and what's you got a JFK movie coming up? What's that again, real quick?
JFK X, Solving the Crime of the Century, in which me and my friend Ryder Lee solved the JFK assassination just in time for the 60th anniversary, and just in time for RFK Jr., who's running for president.
Right. Okay. So really quickly, is he gonna become President Trump's vice president?
I think there's a good chance of it, actually. If the Democrats really screw him over, and he gets all pissed off at the Democrats because they won't, and they aren't going to help him, because they're going to put in Gavin Newsom, but they're really going to put in Michelle. That's what everyone, I know what's going on.
Michael?
They're going to put in Michelle, and that's what all this trans stuff is about. Isn't that there's a trans movement, it's that they're funding the trans movement to get everybody ready for Michelle, and she's going to come out.
Interesting. Okay.
And everybody's going to say, oh, how brave he is.
Right.
I see, you mark my words. I know what's going on.
You said it here. Okay. Yep. Jay, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I will let you know when the videos are posted. I'll send you the links.
Thanks.
And we will stay in touch.
All right, man. See you.
Have a great day.